There's his face. Ah, how's it going, buddy?
Good.
How you feeling
Good.
going into overtime?
A little on edge. I'm not gonna lie. Just we talked about it earlier. The political side effect of this game is a lot. Like it seems like it doesn't matter that much, but it really does. When you have the president commenting on a game like this, and you know how vocal he can be in the media and just in the public eye, there's a lot riding on it. So with every shot and every second you get closer to the end of the period, the nerves get a little tighter, the fists get clenched a little more, the breath starts to get held a little more often. So you can feel it within yourself as a hockey fan. You know how much certain games mean, and I found myself, getting closer and closer to the edge of the couch, and just just watching so intensely. And when Bennett scored, jumped up and just screaming like it was like a Stanley Cup game or an Olympic game, and really this has just ultimately got me fired up for next year when we go to Italy for the Olympics, when we will truly have Canada's best. Because yes, this is a best on best, but you look at a few of the players we had left at home, and if they had an Olympic camp like trials, they tend to have like a camp with more players than they're going to take to the tournament, see who's best, really try to mix the lines and create a really solid team. And so we'll have to see what comes out of that next year. But this is just a taste of the energy and what it means to these guys to play for their country.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like you think about, I think back to what was it, the 2002 or no, which it was the 2006 Olympics, and they didn't bring Sidney Crosby along. And that kind of gave me a similar feel when they didn't bring either Celebrini or Bedard to this tournament. That's one thing that I thought about. But you got to think, obviously, moving into the Olympics in Italy next year, you're going to see maybe one of those guys. I'd say Celebrini has a better chance. But the other benefit of the Olympics is they actually allow 25 players on your roster, which I think is something that they're probably going to look at for this tournament in the next one when they do the 18 tournament. They'll probably up that number because obviously with the shenanigans with Harley and Quinn Hughes and all that. So I think you're going to see probably 25 players at the next, whatever they call it, the World Cup or whatever.
I agree. And they were adjusting the rules on the fly as best they could. They didn't foresee the type of injuries coming out of this tournament. No one really, like we said earlier, predicted the players putting this much into it, but they've been waiting to play best on best for as long as the fans have been wanting to watch it. So we know how much it's going to mean to them next year for the Olympics, because this too for these players is just a taste of that best on best international play that they don't get to play very often, right? Like Canada and US, the women's teams play against each other several times a year, and you get national teams over in Europe, they play against each other, exhibition games and that sort of thing. Whereas Canada and US, their guys are all tied up with contracts in the NHL for the majority of the year, and they don't get a lot of time off. So to play these tournaments, it just means that much more when they finally get to do it. So next year is going to be, if you think this game's intense, next year is that tournament is going to be wild.
Well, that's the thing. You do miss out, right? Like, because obviously you don't have a Draisaitl in this tournament. You don't have a Kopitar, right? And I don't know if Slovenia is making the Olympics, but it's more fun when you have the best on best. And there are some countries that are missing, like we talked about. You got Czechia out. You don't have Slovakia. Even Germany's become a real contender a lot of the time. Switzerland. So it will be fun in when they do was it 2028? They're doing the World Cup when they have the 8 teams, and then, like we said, going up to the amount of teams that they have in the Olympics, it should add a different wrinkle than just a quick round robin tournament like we saw here for the 4 nations.
Exactly. Yeah, the expanding it into a World Cup style of event with more teams will give it that Olympic flavor, and doing it in the double off year, right? We wait every 4 years for Winter Olympics, and then every 4 years for summer, but it's every other year or every other 2 years that one or the other happens. So to kind of develop that sort of pattern with the NHL. You could do, the Olympics, then you have an All-Star game, then you have a World Cup, then you have an All-Star game, then you have the Olympics. You could kind of break it up that way. Then you're not really getting that stale All-Star game every year waiting for the Olympics to happen. And then if you, for some reason, if there's political issues or what have you, and you don't end up going to the Olympics, like we've seen for a couple of times now with the NHL players, um, or just the one time rather, it just feels like twice because they don't happen that often, right? So for these guys, it means a lot, and it means more for the fans too when the best are actually playing in those tournaments as well.
We were chucking a little bit of shade at McDavid through in the first intermission there. Do you feel like he has stepped up a little bit?
A little, but still not enough. Not in a game like this. I want to see him put the country on his back and demand the win, but I just feel like he hasn't. Like it's almost like those two big pops he took from McAvoy have kind of turned him into a bit of a shy player to drive the outside. Yeah, he's dumping the puck off really quickly. He's not trying to beat guys one on one. It's just not the normal dominant skating we see from McDavid or the explosive speed. Like McKinnon's been flying out there, like been shot out of a rocket every time he comes off the bench, and McDavid just kind of looks like he's out there. Um, which I don't understand why that's his makeup. Um, but boy, it sure looks a lot like when he kind of disappeared a bit in the playoffs for the Oilers last year.
Well, it's interesting too because obviously he's best on best. So the defender that he's facing, he's not able to expose the team when he's got the third defensive pair out there where he can blow by them and make a good play. So he is every single player he's going up against is going to be a sound defensive player. But I do wonder, maybe you're right, if those hits from McAvoy, which would be funny because McAvoy's literally out of the tournament now, and the last game he played was against McDavid, right? So it would be interesting to see if maybe that was part of it. And who knows too, right? Obviously there's a flu going through the whole tournament, it sounds like. So it might be a part of that too. But then the other aspect too is McDavid plays the game at probably a different speed than a lot of the other guys are used to. But you figured there would be at least a couple guys on this team that would be able to keep up with that velocity, right?
Oh, for sure. There's plenty of speed on the Canadian team, and you look at the goal he scored against the U.S. the last time we played, and that speed has just basically been non-existent tonight. So maybe he is sick, because I mean, the way everyone was talking about this game, he's got to want it. I mean, how could you not if you're in that room with the rest of those guys? Um, we'll see. We'll see what kind of McDavid we get in overtime here, but we're going to need him to start generating some scoring chances. He hasn't really been around the net much tonight. Um, I've seen mostly, looking at who's generating the scoring chances. It's coming from the blue lines through Makar or Harley, and you got Crosby and McKinnon working hard in front of the nets. Jarvis, Hagel, Sorelli. Those seem to be the names that are kind of popping out tonight. Bennett as well. Um, but yeah, you don't really see McDavid out there turning on the highlight reel.
Well, it's interesting too. I don't know if you saw the graphic in the middle of the game where they had there was only two American players, American forwards that had not had a shot yet. And currently, I just looked it up too. There's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's still 6 players on the Canadian roster that are forwards that don't have a shot on net, right? There's only 4 forwards on the Canadian roster that have more than one shot. McDavid only having 2 shots, right? So it seems obviously at this point, the Americans leading with shots 27-23. That's got to be a focus moving into overtime, is just getting some more shots on Hellebuck.
I would hope so. But we've kind of seen this hockey all year where they are deferring to the blue line and trying to get shots through from the point instead of getting to that middle soft zone, just above the hash marks. That's not really what's happening. And, we know that both John Cooper and Tocchet like to play shutdown hockey in championship situations. Well, Tocchet hasn't been in this type of situation, but this is the type of hockey that he loves, and it's the type of hockey that most people know in the big games, it's the kind of hockey you want, because yeah, they're not generating the type of offense through the forwards, but they're also not giving up too many odd man rushes coming back the other way, and they're not really giving much for the U.S. So you're looking for that mistake, but it's really tough to come by when, like you said, it's best on best.
I was gonna say that to you, is that this hockey seems a lot like what you're seeing from the from the Canucks these days, is that chip and chase kind of a style.
Yeah, and that's what they say wins championships.
Oh, looks like my timer
Yeah,
is
it
not
looks like they
correct.
shortened the intermission on
Yeah,
you.
look at that. Just a little bit. I guess everyone's eager to get into the action. So looks like they're lining up at center. So once the game ends, we'll do our post game show, brother.
Absolutely.
Nothing is perfect.